Hello and welcome to the Consistory, the Co-Elk YouTube channel. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Zabel of St John's Evangelical Lutheran Church located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia. Welcome to our mini-series Ask the Consistory, where we answer listener questions. Now, previously I did a three-part video series on the Antichrist, explaining what is the biblical position on the Antichrist, what is the teachings of the Lutheran confessions regarding the Antichrist, and what does the Roman Catholic Church say about the Pope, which leads the Lutherans to condemn the Pope as the Antichrist. Not any individual Pope, but the papal office. Now, I've had some discussions online with people regarding the topic of the Pope being the Antichrist. And some people have raised this objection to, well, what about Muhammad or Islam being the Antichrist? Isn't he a better, representative of the Antichrist? Wouldn't he better fit the biblical explanations of an Antichrist? He's outside the church, he's attacking the church, he's a great danger to the church. Why is Muhammad not the Antichrist? Why is the Pope? Well, I'm here to explain to you why the Pope and not Muhammad is the Antichrist. And there are essentially two verses that I'd like to focus on. One which is more explicit and direct, and one which is kind of implicit. Now, there's probably other verses I could draw upon, like the mentions in Revelation about the false prophet, and point out the fact that in order to be a false prophet, he has to be within the church of God, representing God, not somebody who's outside the church, attacking the church, and things like that. But the main verse I wanted to focus on is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4, which says that the Antichrist, or the man of lawlessness, as he is called in 2 Thessalonians, opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. So this is the main text that actually Lutherans use to support the idea that the Pope or the papal office is the Antichrist, because it says he makes his seat in the temple of God, that is, in the church of God. The Pope, or the Antichrist, is a threat from within. It is someone within the church that leads the church astray. It's someone who corrupts the church from the inside, not somebody who attacks the church from the outside. And this is generally the reason why we do not believe Muhammad is the Antichrist, because even though Muhammad is a false prophet, even though he attacks Christianity, even though he teaches that Christianity is wrong, and that Muhammad would claim to be the true prophet of God, and that Christians have strayed from the truth and all this stuff, Islam is outside of the church. Muhammad is outside of the Christian church. Muhammad doesn't claim to be a Christian. Islamic people don't claim to be a branch of Christianity. They are an outside threat to the Christian church. But 2 Thessalonians makes it clear that the Antichrist is an inside threat. It is somebody who attacks the church from within. It's somebody who corrupts the church from the inside out. Somebody who leads the church, who claims to be the head of the church, who claims to be the leader of the church. Muhammad never did this. Islam doesn't do this. The Pope, the papal office, does this. The Roman Catholics are part of the Christian church. They are a group, a branch of the Christian church. The Pope claims to be the leader of the church on earth. He exalts himself above everybody else, and he corrupts the church from the inside out. He is a threat from within. And again, we can see this also from another verse found in Daniel chapter 11, verses 37 and 38. This is a verse quoted in the Book of Concord in reference to the Antichrist. And the Book of Concord quotes this to say that the Antichrist is somebody that will bring in new worship practices into the church and will corrupt the liturgy and take what is adiaphora and make it law and demand that people must follow his man-made worship, his man-made rites and his man-made liturgy and his man-made decisions. Otherwise, they cannot be part of the church. And that's the Lutheran interpretation of Daniel 11, 37, 38. And we can see this reading that it says, he, this is the Antichrist figure, will pay no attention to the gods of his fathers or to the ones beloved by women. He shall not pay attention to any other god, for he shall magnify himself above all. He shall honor the god of fortresses instead of these, a god whom his fathers did not know. He shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. So we see from Daniel here is the same language from 2 Thessalonians, that the Antichrist will exalt himself above all. But you see here that he references that he won't worship the God of his fathers, referring to the God of Yahweh. Instead, he'll worship these gods of fortresses, of gods of gold and of silver. This is about the Antichrist corrupting the religion of the people of God. That he will not worship the one true God of his ancestors, but that he will worship these this false god. Not false gods. As it says, he will worship the God of fortresses. This is not like Muhammad, who took off to worship a different God, but this is corrupting the already God of the Bible. And so this is something that the papal office did. This is what the popes did. This is what the Roman Catholics did. The papists have done. They have led astray the church so that we are not actually worshipping the true God of the Bible, but this false God of their imagination. And this again kind of shows that since he is not worshipping the God of their fathers, this shows that the Antichrist is an internal threat. It's not an outside threat. The God of his fathers is referring to the God of the forefathers of Abraham and Jacob and Isaac, the God of Israel. And so the Antichrist is one who corrupts the worship of the one true God. The Antichrist is one from within the church. Now, I think the Thessalonians text says this much more explicitly. I think Daniel's text is much more implicit when it says these things, and you kind of have to read Daniel in light of Thessalonians, and this is part of reading the Old Testament in light of the New Testament. I think Thessalonians, it's much clearer when it just makes the point that it says the Antichrist will be seated in the temple of God. The Antichrist will be seated in the church. So no, the Antichrist is not Muhammad, because Muhammad is an outside threat. The Antichrist must be an inside threat, and that is best explained by the papal office. I've been your host, Reverend Jack Zabel. Goodbye, and God bless.